There is a video online called The Danger of a Single Story about a woman from Nigeria who was told by an American professor that she's not African enough. The litanies about racism that exist are constantly changing, and it's painfully obvious that some of it is a generational fashion. For example, when I was very young, the basic mindset of the literary movement that was opposed to racism and trying to make civil rights advances with sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. The situation has changed to the idea that words are a form of sticks and stones. I don't think that those points of view are meant to be contradictory. I think that they come from experience that walls of sound can be put up that are obstructions and can be used as physical objects to um, abuse other people. But this is a form of abusive language. It's not really indicative of how people feel or what people want. Another problem is the idea that, for example, the Black Panthers were arming themselves as a self-defense party, and their arguments were perfectly reasonable. They were typical Second Amendment arguments. I didn't buy into it. I don't want to own weapons. But I was standing with King, Abernathy, and so on. But we've heard over and over and over again for years and years and years the people like Reagan were spending, taxing and taxing and spending for the purpose of defense. Defense is a very Orwellian word, and it gets very aggressive in militant society where words are considered sticks and stones. So a person who's completely nonviolent, speaking truth to black power, gets into a great deal of uh, jeopardy. And there's an argument that's also coming into vogue, which is that um, you, oppressing an innocent person isn't oppressing an innocent person or an injured person or a victim of terror by the Ku Klux Klan. If the blacks and the NAACP viciously abuse a victim of the KKK, it's not actually victimizing them if they're a white victim of the KKK. You see, it's changing. It's these wheels of mentality. They put in a neuroplasm and tortured it. And they were saying, if you don't threaten us, if you don't call us a name, we'll start killing bystanders. They were taking hostages. Say what we want you to do what we demand of you. Make yourself out to be, discredit yourself, disgrace yourself. Show that you are the enemy within. We need you to do this because we know there's a problem in them thinking that virginity proves rape. There's a problem. So we need you to do something in self-defense terror. Call somebody a name. We need you to say, I will hit you in self-defense if you don't stop, so that we can pin the tail on the donkey. And and they were killing innocent bystanders, and taking hostages. And, they're probably still, how can we get this to work? How can we get this to work? The long arm of Carnegie Mellon University taking, getting a feeling about something. Oh, in the effervescence of Robert Fripp's hallucinatorium, they're getting a feeling about something, a true feeling, and they must snatch a symbol from the pouch. And this emerges from this generational structure. It's perfectly um, understandable from a generational point of view. And let's take it out of the race context for a moment. there was a Chinese Baptist church next door to a soup kitchen. And I attended their youth group for a while, and I heard them talking about what can we do for community service. And when I said, well, you have a food kitchen right next door, why don't you volunteer there, raise food for them? They said, that's for the older people. We're talking about our own generation. Well, if you take, it's perfectly understandable that people who like each other because they're one generation and practicing ageism would say we don't want that white because it's deaf and old. And I'm not going to argue with you. I don't care. I don't want to be involved with you. I don't want to be mixed up with you. Believe me, I'm not vying for teachers' rights at UW Dialectical. The Latino can have the job. The Chinese man can have the job. I'm out. I'm sick of it. But it's also understandable that some generational people, I like black people, but I want them to be black people who are like me, who here are in some way young, and that's the sort of construct that exists. And one of the things you may have found that, like somebody who grew up in this free speech movement, is a minority. I was taught to sing songs like Colored Spade by the movement because we were trying to shake. That's why you sometimes hear me refer to myself as queer bait, because even though it's meant to be very denigrating, it's to make me subhuman, to justify torturing me. My conditioning as a slave of the civil rights movement was to embrace the fact that only I can decide whether those words are going to hurt me. A person comes from the free speech movement in today's environment of anti-racism, where there's all of these pledges and death vows and you know um, embracing the tribe and all of this stuff. It's a minority. When you have a political correctness movement and you have a free speech elder, it's a minority. And the conditioning is already skewed to reject the elder, to reject the elderly. And so, you're telling people who have been through the civil rights movement, maybe that, the epigenetic issue of inborn racism or incarcerated racism and overcome it, are now being faced with the idea that they're inferior because of how they overcame it. Joe Biden had to deal with that. What's different is that they're old and young, and the young people need to be honest with themselves. There's a whole set of people who make up reasons why they reject me and don't like me. The reason is that I'm deaf, and they can't say that because of their political correctness. So the logical thing to do is for me to just say, I'm sick of it. I'm just going to stand off from it because I know the problems that come with being deaf. I'm not stupid. The problems come from being old. But what gets sickening is the UW Dialectical. Actually, this is a fact. This is not being made up. Poison me in the stomach so that my bowels rumble. So they can say, see, this is why we don't like him, because he's detestable, because his bowels rumble. When I was given a chance to read a poem, they made it a point of giving me a falafel. So the falafel sort of spewed from my, they embarrassed me when they gave me my honors certificate. It's a drive in people like Sharon Santos and the croquet register. It's a drive. It's a genetic inborn drive. And I'm not saying just Japan, because this was surrounded by black women, by Muslim women, by honored fathers of the UW Dialectical who are half my age. It was a drive to render the symbol, the odious white deaf patriarch suck, as detestable as possible, while clapping, oh, you got your honor certificate, queer bait, ha 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 ha. It's a Carey syndrome, pouring pig blood on the motherfucker at the end of the day. And Yeah, that's just, Clint Eastwood's terrain with Painter, Gabriel, and Ronald Reagan, and the host of absolute pukes who worked over the civil rights movement from time immemorial. They say they have these great intonated characters. Maybe some of them do. But the bottom line is they want people to be afraid of them. They want people to question them. That's one of the big differences between the civil rights movement past, when people who wanted to abandon racism wanted to be free of fear. They wanted to be free of fear. I personally loved my black peers. They always rejected me. They rejected me because I smiled when they complimented me and stuff like that. This, now, but I always loved them. I always wanted to be accepted by them. I never was. That's like, forget about it. It's over. I'm over the hurdle of that stuff. But these people of the civil rights movement wanted to be free of fear. Today's generation want to be the controllers of fear. They want to make you afraid of them. And they pour out swastikas and call them warriors, warriors. They're outers too. Because it's a mindset. They won't be more ever trying to frightened of them to go even go outside. Yeah, it's a generational thing. So, and you could call me a hippie or whatever you want, but that plays into the brainwash system, the boondoggle of the Shulman Fripp scene with Peter Sinfield justifying torturing me as a child and making sex an integral that proves I'm an immoral inferior. We have a feeling about things like this. They say, we need to take out an innocent bystander because we have a feeling about things like this. This is Carnegie Mellon University's Dilton Doilies, you know, and it's pedestrian psychopathy, but the um, AOCs and the Josh Hawleys are like, wow, that's concept that's metaphysical. That's really, yeah, man, that really makes you think. Well, and they can't just say that attacking innocent people and attacking innocent people is wrong. They can't. Oh my God, what did you just say? Attacking innocent people and the innocent people was wrong? You can't do that. You can, oh, son, this is metaphysical. It's a great harness, infinite unto on high.